family, child rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. It is, of course, our weekend edition, and oftentimes we spend some time talking about some of the issues in the news, but don't forget this is also the last day of our Truth Team 360. But as we think about some of the issues we might have a chance to talk about today, and we'll probably have more left on the table than we will cover, we will talk a lot about religious liberty, as we always do, and Kelly Shackleford back from this very important case that appeared before the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces, kind of the Supreme Court of the military. We have been following all week the Target boycott. Over 1 million people have signed that petition. We'll have Tim Wildman with us in the second hour. And in light of that, now all sorts of stories coming out about Starbucks and Barnes & Noble and Lord & Taylor and Saks Fifth Avenue wanting to have that same policy. So we're going to get into some of that. We will maybe spend a little bit of time today talking about the campaign. Ted Cruz actually received an endorsement from Governor Mike Pence. Donald Trump received an endorsement from Coach Bobby Knight. And while we're talking about that, might even get into John Boehner's attack on Ted Cruz if we have time. Of course, we have the anti-Trump protesters, 17 arrested, waving Mexican flags, smashing a police car. And probably won't get to this today, but sometime in the future, I'd like to talk about Will Ferrell wanting to do a comedy about Ronald Reagan and his Alzheimer's. Penna, Dexter, we will not get to all of this, but those are just a few of the many, many stories that we cover every single week here on Point of View.
We won't get to all of it, but as I listen to you sort of speak about some of the issues we'll be covering, and as I think about what's been going on lately in the culture, in politics, in the wars for religious liberty, and just in the country, the fight against terrorism, for instance, I am reminded of the importance of Point of View, because we have a media out there that seems to have its own agenda on a lot of issues, and I think it's highlighted in a year like this. And so it just makes me so grateful, not only to be involved with Point of View, but that there is a point of view.
Yes. Kelly Shackleford also with us, but in studio all week, Brad Fisk. And Brad, this has been a good week of Truth Team 360.
So far, so good. We're so grateful to all of you who have checked in with us financially this week. And let's not stop now. Perhaps this is the first time you've heard us this week. And
so we'll have to explain.
Exactly. So what we're doing is this. We stop a couple times a year and we say, hey, we're listener-supported radio here. And a major portion of our budget comes from you, our listeners. In fact, most all of it does. And so we depend on you to stand with us financially so that we can continue to do what we've been doing for over 4 decades. And you do that by joining the Truth Team is the best way to do it that I know of. That's $1 a day or more. And you give at that level. We've got a beautiful welcome gift. It's the Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing. The entire New Testament loaded on this little tiny MP3 player. It'll fit in the palm of your hand. Dramatized music, sound effects, the ESV version, word for word from Matthew to Revelation. That is a gift as you come aboard as a Truth Team member for that $1 a day gift or more. And the way you do that is to call us, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Oh, by the way, did I mention, guys, there's a match challenge on the table. $22,000. Is that awesome? Thank you to some friends of the ministry that have been so generous in making that possible. Now, here's the way it works. That is not in our total. It will not be in our total until it's matched. That is the requirement. So you need to call, and as you call with your gift of $1, $10, $100, $1,000, it will be matched up to the $22,000.
Well, again, I would encourage you right now to start calling because we have to meet that match. And we have a number of volunteers standing by. Matter of fact, last night I answered the phones.
That's
and that was
right.
kind of fun. And only one or two people figured out who it was answering the phone as I was taking those pledges. And again, you don't have to have all the money. This is a pledge.
That's right.
And that's what we call it a pledge line. 1-800-347-5151 for $1 a day or $30 a month, $360 a year.
That's right.
You certainly can get the Bible stick, and we will send that to you. But some of you say, I might like to support you at a little higher level, and we figured out that if you sponsor just a minute a month, that's $65
For a minute.
A minute.
That's cool.
And if at that level, you could either get the Bible stick or this wonderful, actually what we call it, 16-ounce tumbler and journal set.
Right.
And if you'd like to see what it looks like, you can go to our website and find that as well. At the $100 level, you get both of those. So again, that's
awesome.
just a
That's
way
great.
to say thank you.
Yep.
Of course, you'll also, of course, receive the Outlook magazine, all the other benefits that come from being a member. But we are encouraging you right now to make a phone call, and I'm looking at a number of our volunteers in the other room there waiting to get that first phone call.
That's right.
So,
800-347-5151. A gift of $100 a month. That tumbler set is yours. The Bible stick, listen, guys, $1 a day. You can do that. $1 a day is such an easy way to kind of ease your way into our support team. 800-347-5151.
again, you could give a one-time gift, and I talked to some people last night that did, but again, we hope that some of you will consider supporting us monthly, because I've noticed around here, the bills come in monthly.
They do.
If the income comes in monthly, it works out pretty well.
It does. It does
nevertheless.
indeed.
So again, 1-800-347-5151. I'm not ignoring him. I want to get to him right now. Kelly Shackleford, this was a historic case. The Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. Paul Clement, who we've talked about before, argued the case, and you were there at a historic case. What was going on?
Well, this is the case that we have at First Liberty with Monica Sterling. She is a Marine, and she was actually court-martialed, which is a criminal proceeding. She was court-martialed because she had a scripture verse taped to the bottom of her computer.
Wow.
And it went up to the Marine Court of Appeals, and the Marine Court of Appeals held that, well, they didn't think it was protected as religious freedom because they didn't consider the posting of a scripture to be a religious exercise.
Wow.
And so, this has brought all this stuff up to the court, and very important because, we've had the Uniform Code of Military Justice was put in place in 1950. And this high court, essentially the military Supreme Court, has been there for a long time, but they've never had a religious freedoms case like this. And so this was going to be the first time, the major case. This is going to be a landmark decision that will really play out for many years to come. And it was a very, what you would call a hot court. In other words, very quick questions, and the courtroom usually is not filled. It was filled. There was a sketch artist there. I mean, it was a big deal what was going on there, and that will affect every single person who serves us in uniform, but even more so because this law that they're using, the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act, protects all of us. It will affect all of us, how this is interpreted. So, really important case, and one that we're going to really have to keep. People need to be in prayer. We can tell you more about how it went and why it's so close, but people really need to be praying for this case.
We are going to come back and talk a little bit more about that, but it occurred to me, Brad, that why don't we encourage those of you that have served in the military to think about joining with us.
Good.
This is the most important case related to religious freedom that has ever gone to the Court of Appeals of Armed Forces. Kelly Shackleford was there. We get an update every week about some of these religious liberty cases, and so I want to hear from some of you today. 1-800-347-5151. If you appreciate the work that he has done over the years to defend those in the military,
right.
we'd love to hear from
We
you.
would. 800-347-5151. By the way, you can give online as well. Pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. And just click on the appropriate buttons, and you'll be able to make your gift that way, such as, let's see, we already had Sandra do that, we had John do that, and we had Nancy do that before we started.
Yeah.
So how about that?
We had a few phone calls before we started, but
We
now,
did.
as we go to the first break, I really want to hear from you. Don't forget, we have a $22,000 match. That means your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200.
We want to hear from 8 of you right now during this break. Come on, you guys, let's go. 800-347-5151.
Be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
You know, debate about climate change has moved into a new and dangerous phase. Earlier this month, 17 state attorneys general and Al Gore got together to plan how they could use the prosecutorial power of their state offices to investigate groups that question the claims of climate change. This should concern all of us. The editors of National Review said that aggressively using these prosecutorial powers should raise an entire May Days parade full of red flags. Prosecutors are in the business of enforcing the law, not rewriting it, and the open, naked promise to use prosecutory powers as a political weapon is a prima facie abuse of office. In a previous age, many of these state attorneys general would now be facing impeachment hearings. The target at this moment is the Competitive Enterprise Institute, but it is clear that Exxon is in the sights of these prosecutors. The subpoena against CEI is a fishing expedition with the hopes of finding something that can be used against other groups and can become fodder in a full public relations campaign. Now, it's worth mentioning that no one is arguing that any laws have been broken. I believe we still have a First Amendment that allows people and organizations to question the scientific claims being made about climate change. Meanwhile, there's a case in Oregon brought by children concerning climate change. The suit claims that the government is violating their constitutional rights by permitting, encouraging, and otherwise enabling continued exploration, production, and combustion of fossil fuels. You know, regardless of your view on climate change, you should at least agree that the proper debate about policy should happen at the legislative level. These attorneys general should not be using their office in this way. Moreover, the rule of law is at stake, which these attorneys general are supposed to uphold. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360, James Robison.
Point of view transforms our thinking. The scripture that says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," is so true even in our day. I believe that point of view gives people as much knowledge and wisdom in a brief period of time as is possible for you to be exposed to. I want to encourage you to support this incredible ministry of wisdom and knowledge that is necessary to literally arm you to stand against the forces of deception and destruction. Please, I ask you from the bottom of my heart, support Point of View. Go online, make the gift, write a check. Encourage your friends to listen. They will get wisdom from above. Support this incredibly important outreach.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
James Robison was in studio a while back and talked about the importance of point of view. And he said you can call 800-347-5151. You can go online and you can provide support in a variety of different ways. And we encourage you right now to give us a call because we have some volunteers that are standing around waiting for your phone call.
That's right. 800-347-5151. That's the number to call. By the way, we need to talk about this match for a minute. $22,000 is way more than we've done the rest of this week.
It is, yes.
And so we really need to kind of get an early start on that. So let me encourage you, if you have the means, and many people do, you could give $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 toward this, and it would really help us dig into that match. So please don't be bashful as you consider. It's between you and the Lord. Pray and obey. See what the Lord would have you do to share financially with Point of View. and then just follow him in obedience. And you can do that again by joining us at 800-347-5151.
Again, let's encourage you to call while we're talking with Kelly Shackleford and, of course, Penna, Dexter. And Kelly, let's, if we can, get into this idea of the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. What significance is this apart from that? For all of our military listeners out there, they understand how important that is. Can you imagine being court-martialed for having a Bible verse? I mean, this should be an easy decision, but we'll find out. But I think everybody's affected by these religious liberty cases, aren't they?
Well, sure. Number one, everybody who works for the federal government is in the same situation, because the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act applies to every person who works for the federal government, whether you're in the military or wherever you are. So number one, it goes broad right there, but it's also, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is also used by citizens who ever have any issues with the federal government that affects their religious freedom. So literally this affects everybody. I would say the argument itself, it looked like during the oral argument that there were two of the judges who seemed to realize that we were right. There were two
And these are civilian judges, by the way.
They are. They're civilian.
Yes.
Because realize this is where like court martials come up to, where people are being executed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the idea is not just the military, you want civilian. And so these were appointed by the President of the United States.
Wow.
And I would say, we had two of the judges who clearly, I think, understood and realized that these were violations. And then we had two that seemed to have real problems with that, and then one that you really couldn't tell. So, I mean, many people were predicting this is probably going to be a 3-2 decision. Right. I hope not, but if it is, it just needs to be 3-2 on the side of religious freedom. But when you do a case that is such a landmark case, in other words, there's never been one like this, they're concerned, obviously, of what are the implications, and they don't want to create, a difficult situation. So they have to think through how to do this, how to lay it out, really how to say, yeah, this does violate religious freedom. Let's draw the boundaries about what that means in the military.
Do they have to think through, I'm sure they do, how this will affect the military in the future? Because the military is a different entity than the society as a whole. And I would think, because we're seeing so many violations of the religious liberty of members of the military, that this would be very important. I know they don't get that many religious liberty cases at this court, but what they do, I would think, would be very important right now.
It will. And the great thing about the way the Act works is whether it's in the military or out of the military, it's the same balancing test, but the balancing test allows the government to say, hey, look, okay, we did burden this person's religion, but here's the compelling governmental interest we have that is requiring us to do that. Now, obviously, in the military, there's going to be a lot more ability to have a compelling interest in, doing things that we're not allowed to do if they were outside of the military. Those balances are allowed, but in this case, what they did is they essentially said, well, we don't even, we're just determined it's not religious to post scripture verses. I mean, that's crazy. And then later in the same opinion, they said that the reason it was a problem were that Marines might walk by her desk and see the scripture verse and be offended because it's religious. So it's like you can't have it both ways, okay?
That's right.
You can't have that it's not religious one place and then the other place it's so religious it bothers people. Yeah. But that's why it's so important, because if that precedent were to stand, then religion in the military would be done. I mean, religious freedom, because it can't ever occur because somebody else might be bothered, and that might hurt order and, cohesion and all those type of things, morale. This is essentially the argument that was being made. I feel very strongly that will be overturned, that part of the decision.
Let's hope so.
And
that's the
hopefully
heckler's veto, isn't it?
It is.
It'd
be really dangerous for our military. And I'll tell you, people misunderstand this. We in our office, somebody said, look, and it was on one of the TVs. They'd flipped it onto Fox News, and they were discussing the case. And they brought on one of these attorneys who's like a contributor for Fox, who gets on as attorney, but obviously he knew nothing about military law. And he started saying all these things that were totally not true about the case, about what the law is, about how, when you join the military, you don't have any more Fourth Amendment rights. Oh, yes, you do. You don't have, and he said all these things. So there's all these people that have all these things in their mind that would just say you lose all your freedoms. No, they're there fighting for our freedoms. take their freedoms away.
You know, Brad, I was just thinking this is, again, one of the themes we've talked about. You're hearing things here on Point of View that you've never heard before.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I've not heard of this, really.
Yeah.
So.
Michael Ferris, first of all, think about Michael Ferris. He was involved in writing the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or at least drafting it in part. And we certainly have talked about this with Robert Knight and with Frank Turek and all sorts of people this week, and Gary Bauer. And so, again, I just want to hear from especially all of our listeners, but I want to focus for a moment on those in the military who, if you've been listening to this program, know that if it weren't for Kelly Shackleford and Michael Berry and some of the others, these rights that those individuals that have served us well and have protected us in the military, that they are losing their religious liberty unless we stand up and fight those. And you're hearing about this perhaps only on Point of View, and you're hearing about it accurately on Point of View, not even on some of the other talk shows.
You're right. And I'm scratching my head a little bit because we have 10 phone lines, and it looks like all 10 are available and open. And I scratch my head thinking, wait a minute. Why? Is there anybody within the sound of our voices right now that believe this kind of information needs to continue to be brought up so that we can do something about it, so we can put action to our words? Well, if you believe that, would you please seriously consider becoming a part of our team? And that happens when you call and give. Really, that $1 a day level is it's a suggestion, but it's a strong one. Consider giving that $1 a day for a year. Pick up that Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing. Incredible gift as a thank you. You do that by calling us, 10 of you calling us, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. I'm going to say one thing. In response to everything we've been hearing this week on religious liberty, it's back to the bathroom bill too. There's like common sense is gone. Like as you're talking, I'm thinking this is crazy. There's no common sense here.
No, absolutely. And that was the problem. Even during the oral argument, we were just so glad to have Paul Clement, who's the best oral advocate in the country, arguing our side, because some of the judges were confused. They didn't know how to really apply the law. For instance, they said, well, is this a substantial burden, one of them? And Paul said, well, this case is kind of easy on substantial burden because somebody was exercising their religion and they've been court-martialed. So that's pretty easy. But this judge didn't understand, and they were more trying to get at, was this belief of Monica to post the scriptures substantial to her? And I was like, no, that's not how we do things. We don't have the government looking at how important they think this is and that person's religious beliefs. That's totally inappropriate. But this is going to affect a lot of people, and there's some confusion there.
That's right.
And it could lead to it will impact all of us, and not just those of us who have people in the military. It'll impact every one of us what kind of decision comes down.
Well, again, some people are calling right now.
We're looking
but we
for
need
seven more callers to fill the lines.
1-800-347-5151. Especially want to hear from some of you in the military, but all of you that have been hearing Kelly Shackleford every Friday when he is able to be with us talk about religious liberty. Is this important to you? If it is, we'd like to hear from you. 1-800-347-5151. Not equal participation, but full participation. That's right.
That's what we're looking for. Do your very best gift. It could be a single gift, a monthly gift. You get to decide that. It's between you and the Lord, not us. But be as generous as you can when you give. Again, the phone number, 800-347-5151. That's toll free, 800-347-5151.
We'll take a break, but we will come back, and we'd like to report how many of you called. So call us right now, 1-800-347-5151.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. You should step up because you can, and you haven't done so yet. Visit us online at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. On this final day of a very important week for us, be that one who takes us over the top. Pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151. pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Kerby Anderson.
Weekend edition, but it is also the last day of Truth Team 360. By the way, if you've been waiting to the end, this is the
Yeah,
end.
right,
you
that's
know?
right.
If you are a procrastinator, this is it. You know, we only have a few hours, actually an hour and a half left.
That's right.
And we have a match of $22,000
Let me say
on the
that again.
table.
$22,000.
Can
And
we do
all of
this?
that money, until it's matched, sits outside of our total. We cannot use it. We can't spend it. We can't do anything with it until you help us by giving us a call at 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Let's see for a minute. Let's hear from a few of our listeners to see what they've been doing.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's really a blessing to me and to all of us.
I'm going to listen, and Point of View will talk about it, and then I'll know the truth, so then I'm able to speak more wisely.
Well, because you have your program and Fox News, well, I don't send them money, but I'm going to double what I'm sending to you guys because thanks to you, you're keeping this all up to speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I think you guys, y'all's program is wonderful and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it. Not only that, I want to encourage everybody listening to donate, because without our donations, I know that y'all won't be able to stay on the air, and it's just, I don't know where we get this kind of information if it wasn't from y'all.
I'd really first like to say I appreciate Point of View. You've been great and wonderful. A lot of information, and I really appreciate all your work you do.
I'm a relatively new listener to the show, and I really kind of stumbled upon it more than anything. And my comment really is, I think you guys and gals are more right on about the assessment of this country right now than anything I've heard. I go home and I tell my wife, you've got to hear what they're talking about on the show. It's just so right on.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
One of the reasons why we need to hear from you, 1-800-347-5151. And Brad, I see that there are a number of people on the phones, but we still have an open line
We
or
have
two.
open lines, we do. And
Yes.
thanks to Janet and Karina and Lori and Beverly giving gifts, many of them joining the Truth Team. Remember, that's $1 a day or more, and you'll be a part of a special team of people that stand with us financially month by month. 360 for the entire year. That's it, guys. And we encourage you to really give us a call and consider that. 800-347-5151. And don't forget, you get a Bible stick as a welcome gift for your Truth Team gift.
Penna, Dexter, what are your thoughts about the fact that we certainly have so many religious liberty stories that we talk about every single Friday right here on Point of View?
Well, we do, and I'm always glad to see them on, for instance, a Fox TV show or, a network radio program. But as Kelly mentioned, they're not explained in depth. Often the reasons behind them are not delineated so that people can understand them. And I appreciate hearing the testimonials of listeners who say, well, I tune into Point of View to find those answers, and that's why we really need help. And, we've been talking about this team, Truth Team 360, and really going back to its beginnings, Point of View has been a team. And you are, the leader of the team, Kerby. I am so proud to be part of the team. And it's cool because people who listen can also be part of the team.
That's right.
And that's what I'm so grateful for is our listeners, because really, I don't think that any of us would be motivated to do this if we didn't hear from them in the form of calls, but also to hear from you all today as we are asking you to rejoin if you've joined before or join anew, join for the first time. We are asking you to support us right now, and we really appreciate it. In fact, it's a great motivator for us.
You talk about one of the distinctives, and that is we go into depth in ways that you don't get normally. And I want to hear from Kelly in just a minute. Sometimes he's been on a morning show, and I'll hear him on for 3 minutes, and I'm thinking, golly, there's so many things they didn't cover. And then, of course, the other one that we've talked about is you hear things here at Point of View that you hear nowhere else. So there are lots of distinctives, and that's why, without hesitation, we do ask you to support this ministry. 1-800-347-5151. Kelly?
One of the things that came to mind as you were talking about this is, I don't know if y'all remember this, but it wasn't this presidential election, but it was either 4 years ago or 8 years ago. All of the talk shows and Fox and all these people were talking about the Republican primary debates, and we noticed that none of the debates were asking any social issue questions.
That's true.
I mean, which is a huge, obviously, issue. They weren't talking about life. They weren't talking about the definition of marriage. They weren't talking about religious liberty. They weren't talking about any of these things. And no one, I mean, this went on for months, and nowhere on TV, not on Fox TV, nowhere on any conservative talk show were they talking about this. The only place that was looking at this from a Christian worldview and going, why aren't they dealing with these huge issues? Why? Because there were very big differences between the candidates that were running in the primary. And I thought, without point of view, people would have nowhere there where they would have even been told or reminded, hey, you know what? They're not asking this question, this question, this question, only if you're listening to point of view. And so I just think about the people who listen and the things that they hear on point of view that they won't hear anywhere else, information that they'll get that really, empowers them that they won't get anywhere else. And I know not everybody who's out there obviously supports point of view, or else, if everybody pitched in $1, we'd be done way long ago, right? But so think about this not only for yourself, but for how many other people are going to get to hear this because you are supporting, not only for your own benefit, but for many others who the first time are going to turn on and go, wow, why am I not getting this information anywhere else?
Brad, that's kind of paying it forward, isn't it?
It is indeed. There's people before us who have given to point of view liberally, and they've allowed us to stay on the air and continue to do what we do for over 4 decades. And let's fast forward from what you were saying, what happened before to right now. And I believe, like a lot of Americans believe, this election cycle could be a time to come. And I sure hope it's a game changer for conservative values and for those social issues that are so biblically stated. And the Bible's very clear about its position on all of that.
What's at stake, by the way? I put out an email today talking about what I thought was at stake in terms of how we've changed from an idea of freedom of religion to freedom of worship, and how a lot of speech is no longer politically correct. And hey, you can't even necessarily assume that men are going to go into a men's bathroom and women are going to go into a women's bathroom. But Kelly, what's at stake?
Well, gosh, we could spend the rest of today, tomorrow, whatever. But let me give you one quick one that I think is hits so many people immediately, and they realize, oh yeah, the Supreme Court's at stake.
That's right.
Right now, we're at 4-4. Probably the next president is probably going to appoint 3, I would say, Supreme Court justices. So just think about that. There's just not going to be a majority of one side or the other. There's going to be a significant majority. And so many people say, and you can't predict who passes when and who leaves the court when, but many people say that the next president will probably set the court for the next generation. And that affects every issue you care about. You care about religious freedoms. The Mojave Desert Veterans Memorial case we had, where it had a bag over it. The bag's going back on depending upon, who these people are. Do you like your right to own a firearm? Well, there's only 4 members of the court right now who believe that you have that right. 4 others think that isn't protected in the Constitution. We could go down a long list of how you're going to be impacted, and that's just one issue, and that's the court.
I might just mention that the latest issue of Outlook actually goes through all those 5-4 decisions, and First Amendment, Second Amendment, abortion, certainly the issue of marriage, and all the rest. Penna, what else is at stake here?
Well, if we're talking election cycle here, which it seems we're kind of getting onto that topic, this is the most substance-free primary, really, on both the Democrat and Republican side, I would say. But those people who listen to Point of View have got to be frustrated when you listen to the debate out there and the things that people are using, even evangelical Christians, to make their decision, to decide who to support. And, so if we want a substance-free political climate, then, we can keep listening to the major mainstream media outlets that allow that and actually foster it. And we are the antithesis of that. We are so clearly factually based, and also Christian worldview based. And I think we're needed more than ever when we see the direction that some evangelicals are taking in their political life.
We've got 6 open lines. I'm just going to ask the question because you guys are spot on. We are at a crossroads. And if you want us to continue strong at Point of View, we really need to hear from you. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. I just bet you, Kerby, there's 3 guys or gals out there that could give $1,000 gift.
Right. That
3
would
of them. Yeah. That would, because we are at 20. Now, I know we're less than this, and I'll get you an update on the match, but $22,000 match challenge. Every dollar you give that $360, it becomes $720 to us. So that's really important. 800-347-5151.
You might not be able to give $1,000, but you said, well, I probably could give $100 a month. Well, that's
right.
$1,200
That's
at
right.
the end of the year, but it becomes then $2,400.
That's right.
So just think about how you can be involved. And as we go to a break right now, perfect time for you to give us a call, 1-800-347-5151. And of course, as we've mentioned, there's never a busy signal if you go to Point of View online, and pointofview.net will give you that opportunity. Just click on the button that says Join the Truth Team. Pointofview.net, 1-800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee really did her homework in preparing for hearings before the committee she chairs, the House Select Investigative Panel on Infant Lives. This committee is looking into revelations that Planned Parenthood is likely profiting from the sale of the body parts of aborted babies, in violation of federal law. The committee is also inquiring into whether the companies procuring the parts from abortion centers, including many Planned Parenthood clinics, and selling them to research institutions are also violating the law. Billing information, consent forms, advertising, accounting and marketing materials, and several other exhibits were presented at the hearing titled The Pricing of Fetal Tissue. Charts listing the pricing of fetal parts are nausea-producing. A research institution paid a middleman procurement company $3,340 for a fetal brain. A baby's skull matched to upper and lower limbs went for $595. Upper and lower limbs with hands and feet went for $890. Videos obtained undercover and released last summer and fall by the Center for Medical Progress show Planned Parenthood officials, the organization's lead doctors, admitting they alter the abortion procedure, which makes it riskier to the mother to obtain parts as intact as possible. Now, Congress has this evidence showing the prices these large sections of baby bodies command. The videos even hinted at the sale of intact babies. The evidence did not show prices for those. One thing the hearing revealed is that more Planned Parenthood clinics and more middleman procurement businesses than just the ones covered in last summer's videos are now suspected to be involved in this grisly business. A law passed in 1993 makes it illegal to profit from the sale of fetal tissue. It is legal to provide and accept payment to cover reasonable costs associated with transporting and preserving fetal tissue. Under federal law, the transportation of fetal tissue is based upon a non-profit model. But these documents appear to suggest that abortion clinics bore none of these costs, and yet they receive fees from procurement companies. Now, Planned Parenthood says it will no longer accept these fees. Chairman Marsha Blackburn suspects, and I'm quoting her, "It is more than likely that payments to the abortion clinics and to the procurement businesses have exceeded reasonable cost." 3 former federal prosecutors testified before the committee that a criminal probe is warranted. In written testimony to the committee, Ben Sass, U.S. Senator from Nebraska, wrote, "Babies are not the sum of their body parts. Babies are not meant to be bought. Babies are not meant to be sold." Representative Diane Black, another stalwart pro-life congresswoman from Tennessee, a nurse during her pre-Congress career, asked, "Have we reached a point in our society where there effectively is an Amazon.com for human parts, including entire babies?" There's no chance the current U.S. Justice Department will act on this information, but let the investigation continue. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, Truth Team 360, Alan West.
You know, when I think about the importance of Point of View Radio, it is so essential that we connect with the Christian conservative community on the issues and the topics of the day so that they can really get that information to educate and inform them to make better decisions. You know, I have 2 daughters, 22 and 18, and one of the things that concerns me is the impact that the culture will have upon them. And if we don't stand up as evangelical Christians, as Christian conservatives, and start to show the other points of view and start to talk about these issues that are critical out there for the building of character, the strengthening of the soul and the spirit against some of the very negative impacts of culture, then we will lose our young people. We will lose future generations. The important thing about Point of View ministry is that it arms you. It equips you to go out and do exactly as God commanded Joshua to do. To be strong and of good courage, for the Lord thy God shall never leave you nor forsake you.
Point of View, Truth Team 360,
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and as we've been talking about the military, very appropriate to hear from him as well, now the head of the National Center for Policy Analysis, NCPA. And I see that a number of you have even called in on our call-in line. I'm not sure we'll be able to get to your calls because it's so busy, but I noticed that many of you want to speak on this issue of the military. And one more time, I just want to encourage those of you that have served in the military, have a friend, neighbor, family member that served in the military. We'd love to hear from you, because if it weren't for people like Kelly Shackleford and his staff, people like Michael Berry, and certainly let's give some kudos to Paul Clement arguing that case, we would not see the kind of liberty that military officers and military enlisted individuals need to benefit from. And this is a very historic case, and you're hearing about it today here on Point of View.
Yeah, one of my favorite briefs filed in the case was by retired generals, including a 4-star general.
I did see that.
And
yes.
They not only said that, you shouldn't obviously court-martial a Marine for having a scripture verse, they said that in actuality, that religious freedom is important. It's crucial. It's why many people they talked to enlisted, was because of their faith. It's what guides them through a lot of difficult situations. It's what George Washington instituted in the very first military, because it is crucial in order to have a good military. So I think people miss that a lot of times. One of the things I would ask people to think about, when we're at this special week, about whether you want to keep Point of View on the air, essentially. I think of the hundreds of stations that Point of View is on around the country, but I also think of some areas where it's not on. And so obviously that's not the case if you're listening to Point of View now. And so I would just ask you, let's say Point of View is going to go off the air tomorrow, for forever in your area. What would that be worth to you for it to come back on? Because that's what you need to think of. I mean, would it be worth $30 a month? What would that be worth? Think of the information you get, that you can share with others, the firepower you get to now be able to more consistently, argue your position and know what the facts are, right, and know what's coming maybe to your community that you're hearing is in other communities first. I mean, so many different ways, but I think that's one way to think about it, is think of the fact if it were going off, if it weren't for you, what would it be worth to you? And I think to everybody it's worth something, and they can do whatever that is. And so I would encourage people to, call, and again, they don't have to give money. It's just a pledge. Whatever God puts on your heart as you think about, this is what this is worth to me, and I wouldn't want it to go off the air. It's just the pledge line, that 1-800-347-5151 is a way that you can, chime in and say, you know what, this is what the Lord put on my heart to do as a pledge, and I can do that during the year.
That number again, by the way, is 800-347-5151. Well spoken. What is it worth to you? As a matter of fact, Sylvia is very creative. She used to listen to us on the air, and that radio station went away in New York. And so she now listens to us online. And she listens to us every day, loves Kerby, and enjoys the program for many, many years, and has joined the Truth Team. Thank you very much, Sylvia. And then here's another example. Kay supersized her gift. She's been giving at a lower level than $1 a day. She called back and said, you know what? I'm going to go to the $1 a day level. So there may be many of you that have given a singly gift instead of a monthly gift. You could change that into a monthly gift by giving us a call and joining the Truth Team. $1 a day or more. 800-347-5151. Oh, by the way, all of you who join at that level or above are going to receive a Bible stick. This is an MP3 player. You actually plug in your headphones and listen to it. Fits in the palm of your hand. The entire New Testament is loaded on here, the ESV version, dramatized music, sound effects. This is an incredible resource, because the reason I love this is my favorite one we've ever done. And I'll tell you why. Because we are all about the Bible here. We're not just giving worldview opinions and ideas out of thin air. Our basis of this entire program is biblically based. So what better way than to listen to the Bible right directly? And you can use it as a gift as well. If you don't want one for yourself, give us a call. You can go ahead and give, and you can or give that as a gift for a graduate. 800-347-5151. Let me just ask. We've got about 6 or 7 lines, it looks like, open right now. 800-347-5151. Before I give it back to you, here's the match. Started the top of the hour at $22,000. We're right down at the $18,000 level to go. That's a long ways to go. And we have an hour and 5 or 10 minutes to get it all done. So please, guys, don't delay. Give us a call right now with your very best gift. 800-347-5151.
We're going to have Tim Wildman with us in the second hour just briefly to talk about the fact that they have over 1 million people that have signed these petitions. But Penna, Dexter, let me talk about that, because this week we kept coming back to this issue of the bathroom bills, and it's something we've been looking at in North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and others. This is another reason to listen to Point of View, because I can't believe the amount of misinformation that's coming out right now from various corporate bullies, making it sound like this is really no big deal and everybody's overreacting.
You know, it seems sometimes like common sense is draining out of our national psyche. It's draining out of the media. It's draining out of academia. That sort of happened a long time ago. And these companies are causing it to drain out of commerce and that area of life. And, you know, that's, again, I mean, just talking about the impact of Point of View, I mean, we're all about common sense because God is the one who created common sense. And, you know, the Bible sort of undergirds our sense of reality and morality and what works in this world. And so that's what we try to discuss here. And sometimes we try to be sort of like a town hall. We bring in the voices of listeners and, you know, we give our opinions and we have these great guests. And people, I think, in the culture get frustrated because they feel powerless. How do we speak common sense into the culture? Well, one way you can do it is by supporting a radio show like this. I mean, as a mom, I remember I was just so busy with kids and there's no time to do anything else. But you can. We were giving you a way today to help. And it's not one that takes a lot of time, but it's one where you can make a huge impact.
Again, you're not just supporting the 2-hour radio program, it's all the news and information. Kelly mentioned a minute ago this particular case before the Court of Appeals and even mentioned the briefs. Well, we have a link right now to First Liberty, and you can read that. You can read the briefs. You can see some of the videos we've made available. And so we have an ongoing media ministry. So you're supporting more than just a 2-hour radio program now. You're supporting a media ministry that's giving you all sorts of news, information, sending you the Outlook magazine, not to mention the Bible Stick and all sorts of benefits that come from being a member, right?
That's right. And you know, I'm a father and a grandfather, and that's kind of that's the first place I live. Okay, that's my life. And I know there's thousands of people listening to us right now, and you've been listening to us for a long time, but you've never given before, and we know that. Okay, statistically, we know that. So we're asking you to do something very, very special for us. Stand with us financially. Pray and obey. See what God would have you do, and do it. Give us a call. It could be $1,000. We had somebody give $5,000 earlier this week. I mean, the amount is between you and the Lord. It's full participation. 800-347-5151.
A lot of people on the phone, so if you get a busy signal, just call back. Or, guys, you can also go to the website, pointofview.net. Click on that. Join the Truth Team.
No busy signal there.
We'll be right back.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. You should step up because you can, and you haven't done so yet. Visit us online at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. On this final day of a very important week for us, be that one who takes us over the top. Pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining us today. Again, it is the last day of our Truth Team 360, but it's also weekend edition. So we have in studio with us today Penna, Dexter, Kelly Shackleford, and of course Brad Fisk has been with us. This hour we'll get into a couple more issues. We talked about religious liberty last hour, but certainly the campaign, Ted Cruz getting an endorsement from Mike Pence, also selecting his VP, Carly Fiorina. Donald Trump, of course, also getting an endorsement from Bobby Knight. And then we've had all the anti-Trump protesters. Oh, we have a lot to talk about this hour, not to mention one of the most important issues, which we're going to talk about in just a minute with Tim Wildman, and that is the fact that Target boycott, now they have more than 1 million people that have signed the petition. But just before we go any further, Brad, give us an update on where we are, because we have a match on the table.
We started the top of the last hour, $22,000 match. We have carved out about 7,000 of that. So thank you for that. But that means we have $15,200 to go, and we've got this hour to get it done. That is it, because this is Friday. This is the end of our Truth Team week. So please give us a call, 800-347-5151.
As I've said, if you've been waiting, now is the time to pull that trigger and make that phone call. Tim Wildman, it has been crazy there in Tupelo, Mississippi. Everybody wants to talk to you. And what is it now? More than 1 million people that have signed the petition?
Hey, Kerby. Yeah, good to be with y'all. Yeah, it's over 1 million. I was just trying to look real quick to see where we're now. I think it's nearing 1.1 million people that have signed this petition in 7 days.
And again, that you've been getting phone calls and interviews. Of course, you've been in USA Today and in Forbes. Who else is talking to you these days?
CBS, ABC, New York Times. Let's see. I'm supposed to be on with Fox Business at 4 Central this afternoon. Been getting calls from international media. So, it's pretty big all over the news and all over the internet.
Tim, this is Penna, Dexter. It's good to have you. And, of course, this is about the bathrooms, but explain to people exactly what your petition is.
Well, Target, a little over a week ago, felt the need to announce to the world that they were opening up women's restrooms for men to come into. And
it's supposed to be a big selling point for Target, I guess.
Yeah, they wanted everybody to feel included. So they thought this was a great idea, to change human history. We've always had women and men's restrooms separate, and fitting rooms too, I might add. At Target now, men can go into women's fitting room areas. Yeah, so I think what happened was we when they announced that, we said, we'll just put up this petition to boycott Target, see what kind of reaction we get, because we think there's a lot of people that want to know about this and probably shop at Target or would shop at Target, and the thing went viral, and that's where we are today. I was just looking. There's 1,036 signers right now. So somewhere between 1 and 1.1 million people have signed it, and those are families mostly who have said they're not going back to Target. And there's probably a lot of people out there who aren't going to go, who will never sign a petition online. So, and Target stock, for what it's worth, Target stock's down pretty good bit too the last few days. So I think this has backfired on them, quite frankly.
Tim, Kelly Shackleford, one of the things I love so much about American Family Association is that, a lot of people are out there and they'll do a boycott, but they don't do it right. They don't think it through. American Family Association has been doing this a long time. And so I think you go through a lot of thinking and make sure that what you're going to do is have impact. So tell me, what your thinking was on Target, because there's all these businesses that are being crazy opposing, religious liberty bills, whether it's Disney or the NBA. Why this one, and why is this one working so well?
Well, if you're going to get into this kind of work, you got to learn, number one, you can't boycott the world. Okay, we can't. It's impossible. We all know that. We'd like every company that goes against our values, but we're just so dependent in global economy and technology and all that stuff. So, that being said, and despite our reputation, we're very selective, and it's very rare that we call for a boycott of a company, because if you call for a boycott, you got to be committed. You've stuck your neck out there and said, we're going with this, and we're not going. It's not a 1 week and then forget about it. So the reason Target was selected, number one, they're a trend-setting company. Number two, they are easily identifiable. Everybody knows who Target is. They're easy. Number three, they're easy to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And number
That's a great
four,
point.
They're easy to avoid. You can go somewhere else. Some companies aren't, easy to avoid. So, and number four, everybody understands clearly the issue. This is not something you have to, anybody knows. Everybody knows that it's not appropriate for men in particular to go in, or women, either one, vice versa. But men, nobody, I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal, if you take your 10-year-old daughter to Target to shop, she needs to go to the bathroom. She walks in, and some dude follows her in there. You know what? Everybody, if you have any instinctive protective bone in your body, you're gonna say, "Whoa, just a minute!
That's
You're not going in there. You're not going in there." Well, Target has said, "Yeah, he is. He is going in there."
Hey, Tim, it's Brad here, and we're about a half a minute left. Could you just do a really quick reason why people ought to call us? This is our last day of Truth Team, and we've got a $22,000 match that's not done yet.
Okay, well, I self-identify as a Point of View fan.
Well done.
So I think everybody listening to this, there are very few places you get this kind of information. And as I said earlier in the week, we Christians need to stick together. Point of View goes places American Family Association, American Family Radio can't go, but we're getting out the same message about religious freedom and Christian values. And this is a very trying time for believers in this country. We have to stand together.
Very good.
So call and make a donation to support Point of View.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate you being with us, Tim. We'll talk with you again, but wanted to update everybody on the listening audience about more than 1 million people signing that petition.
That's awesome. Good. Way to go.
Tim, thanks for being with us today.
All right.
We only got a minute or two left before we take our break, and this is, again, a very important time where we've had $15,000 still left on the match. And to think of it this way, Penna and Kelly, imagine putting $15,000 on the table, and then I say, you can take that. Imagine what a stack of money that would be. But if you walk out the door, then I get to keep it all. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, we don't want to leave it there. We do not want to leave it there.
And so
you
either pick it up or you're going to lose it. And that's where we are right now with that $15,000 left.
9 lines available, wide open for you at 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. Would there be 9 of you that think this whole bathroom bill thing is absolutely insanity? Would you stand with us? Because we want to continue bringing you the biblical facts of the case. 800-347-5151.
We'll come back and talk a little bit more about that, but we need to hear from you first. 1-800-347-5151. Of course, the website, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
You know, debate about climate change has moved into a new and dangerous phase. Earlier this month, 17 state attorneys general and Al Gore got together to plan how they could use the prosecutorial power of their state offices to investigate groups that question the claims of climate change. This should concern all of us. The editors of National Review said that aggressively using these prosecutorial powers should raise an entire May Days parade full of red flags. Prosecutors are in the business of enforcing the law, not rewriting it, and the open, naked promise to use prosecutory powers as a political weapon is a prima facie abuse of office. In a previous age, many of these state attorneys general would now be facing impeachment hearings. The target at this moment is the Competitive Enterprise Institute, but it is clear that Exxon is in the sights of these prosecutors. The subpoena against CEI is a fishing expedition with the hopes of finding something that can be used against other groups and can become fodder in a full public relations campaign. Now, it's worth mentioning that no one is arguing that any laws have been broken. I believe we still have a First Amendment that allows people and organizations to question the scientific claims being made about climate change. Meanwhile, there's a case in Oregon brought by children concerning climate change. The suit claims that the government is violating their constitutional rights by permitting, encouraging, and otherwise enabling continued exploration, production, and combustion of fossil fuels. You know, regardless of your view on climate change, you should at least agree that the proper debate about policy should happen at the legislative level. These attorneys general should not be using their office in this way. Moreover, the rule of law is at stake, which these attorneys general are supposed to uphold. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360, Dr. Sean McDowell.
We clearly live in difficult times, especially for Christians. Sometimes it feels like the culture is just turning against us quickly. We need to speak up with compassion, but we need to speak up with truth in the way that Jesus did. That's one reason why I'm a big fan of Point of View, is they're dealing with cutting-edge, controversial subjects that the church sometimes doesn't want to deal with. But they do their homework, they do it informed, they also do it in a way that's practical so we understand the issues but know what we can do about them. Ministries like Point of View can only survive with the help of listeners. One of the reasons I think Point of View is so valuable is because they just deal with the cutting issues of the day in a manner that's informed, in a manner that's gracious, and in a manner that's making a difference. Point of View is standing up for truth, and they need your help.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Sean McDowell, now Dr. Sean McDowell,
That's right.
teaches at Biola. Remember when he was just getting started, and now just look at the incredible impact that he has had. A very friendly individual, a very gracious individual, and very articulate. And that's why, one more reason why we encourage you to give to Point of View, 1-800-347-5151. We talk about helping you articulate a biblical worldview and also know how to defend a biblical worldview. That's called apologetics, and Sean McDowell, of course, his father, Josh McDowell, do a very good job of that, don't they?
They certainly do. Hey, Patricia got really creative on us here because this is her comment. I should have been donating for a long time before now. Thank you for that comment. There's a lot of people in her shoes right now, and so we invite you to give. 800-347-5151. Remember, everybody who gives a gift of $1 a day or more, we have a Bible stick for you. It fits in the palm of your hand. It is fully dramatized, word for word, from Matthew to Revelation, the ESV version, English Standard Version, easy to listen to, music, sound effects. It's dramatized, fully dramatized, and it's so much fun to have that Word of God going right into your heart through your ear. Okay, so that's a free gift for you. By the way, match update. Want to hear?
I'd love to
hear. You guys want to hear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, everybody wants to hear. 12,800 remaining to go by the top of the hour. So we cannot pull back and think somebody else is going to do it, because that's not the case. We'd love to hear from you. 800-347-5151. If you get a busy signal ever, it's pointofview.net. Never a busy signal on the internet.
Well, again, don't procrastinate. Give us a phone call, 1-800-347-5151. One of the things I love, Brad, about having Penna, Dexter, and Kelly Shackleford is we get some perspective. Wanted to hear about the campaign here for just a minute. I mean, we've got a lot of things. John Boehner saying some pretty awful things about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz selecting his VP, Carly Fiorina, also getting an endorsement from Governor Mike Pence. And we know that our listeners there in Indiana are going to vote next Tuesday. And then, of course, Donald Trump getting an endorsement from Coach Bobby Knight. What do we think? Penn, let me come to you first about the campaign. We don't spend time every day talking about the campaign because we don't want to wear people out, but I know a lot of people but wonder what you and Kelly would say about all the events this week.
Well, I think that most people that are paying attention know that Indiana is an important state because Donald Trump had that is, if you're not a Donald Trump fan, if you're voting in the Republican primary, it's an important state in that decision. And so, big week last week for Donald Trump, and now Ted Cruz has got to do well there in order to stay relevant. And I was surprised that Mike Pence took so long, the governor there, to endorse. He actually has been a guest on Point of View frequent. There was a few years there where he was on every week. And so I'm glad to see that he did and made an impact in Wisconsin, I think, when the governor, Scott Walker, made his endorsement. So hopefully Mike Pence's will make an impact for Cruz. Ted Cruz picking Carly Fiorina, I think, in a sense, he's been criticized on some sides. Other people are very happy about it. It was just, I think, had to take sort of some of the focus off of Trump.
Which he did shortly, yeah.
Which he did.
Yeah.
And the media is, we've been sort of discussing here on the program, and others have been discussing. The media loves Donald Trump. He's just so great for some of the mainstream networks. He provides such news for them. He provides attention, not all of it good. And so Ted Cruz had to do something to change the equation, and I think it was a good idea to do something like that, and he certainly did get some attention for it. So now, I mean, you just have to kind of see what happens in Indiana. If Donald Trump does not win there, I think we've got just a battle going forward, and we're going to be talking about this here on Point of View periodically.
I want to get to Kelly Shackleford, who's been a delegate to the National Convention, but we have up until right now about 650, now it gets down to 596 delegates left. If indeed Donald Trump needs to get 1237. He almost has to get half of those. So it means that these 54 delegates in Indiana and maybe the 33 in Nebraska, if Ted Cruz does well, then we go to an open or brokered convention. You've never been to one like that, have you?
No, and I think Indiana is what's going to really determine that. That's the thing. You go to these winner take all. It's a big, it's a big chunk. And I think what happens in Indiana probably affects what happens in California. So I think it's one of those deals where if Donald Trump were to win Indiana, I think it would probably be over.
I think it'd be over.
Yes. But if Ted Cruz were to win Indiana, I think there's a really good shot that he makes it to the convention without anybody getting the majority. And as I've said all along, I think if that happens, I do not think that Donald Trump wins at the convention. If he's really close, like within 30 or 40 or whatever, there's enough uncommitted people that he can tie down. But if he gets into the convention and he's 100 away or 200 away or whatever, I don't think he can get there because the people that are, and people say it's not fair. No, it is fair. It's a matter, those delegates represent a majority of the people. A majority of the Republican voters are not voting for Donald Trump. Okay, so the question is, when they have to go to their next choice, if they're not a Cruz or a Trump person, where do they go? Most of them go to Cruz because he actually represents conservative values more. So I think at the convention, if you don't have a majority and you have to have people switching to who their next choice is, I think Ted Cruz is the one who wins. Now, Donald Trump will scream and yell and say it's not fair, but actually it's very fair. It's actually the result of the elections where people were voting, no, I don't like him, but I like somebody else. And then that has to eventually you have to realign with two people so you get a majority.
The people that are delegates are often people that have been party workers. They've given their time throughout the years. We've talked about this here before on Point of View. Today I was reading in the Wall Street Journal, Kim Strassel talked about that. This is not a rigged system at all. In fact, the delegate process was the original process. The primaries only came in later. And so we have a lot of delegates out there, and she posits that there are many, maybe even half the delegates that have been chosen to go so far who really aren't Trump supporters. They don't love Donald Trump. And so I think what Kelly said is correct. If he does not amass the majority of the delegates before they get to the convention in Cleveland, there will be a battle, and he probably won't get it. So the battle is going on right now. As a matter of fact, I would just say it's probably going on this week in Indiana. That's where it is.
I think Indiana is really important. Let me just mention that as we are giving you again some of the inside look, talking with an individual who's been a delegate to the National Convention, been on the platform committee, Brad. This again is the value
Very
that we
important,
have of having people like Penna, Dexter, and Kelly Shackleford. Let's again encourage you to call in with your pledge because we have only half an hour left, and that's 1-800-347-5151. And a minute ago, we had everybody on every line, and now we actually have some people standing up, walking around.
That's right. The lines are wide open.
And that's always the problem when we have such great content that people don't want to make a phone call. But I really need you to make a phone call as we come up to the break here.
Well, here's another critical reason to call now is we have $12,800 remaining in the match challenge. Now, to get that carved up right, we're going to need 3 or 4 or 5 people at $1,000 or more, giving that larger gift. I'm not demeaning the smaller gifts. There's no such thing as a big or small gift anyway, really. But we do need people who have that ability to do that to give us a call right now so we don't leave any of that $12,800 on the table. We don't get that money. It's outside our total until it's matched. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. We invite you to join the Truth Team. That $1 a day level, you'll get the Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing. You're going to get a knowledge that you're helping us get the job done. And it's not just a 2-hour daily radio program.
No, it's certainly not, because as we've pointed out, you get the Outlook magazine, the most recent one here about what Kelly Shackleford talked about, all those 5-4 decisions and what would look like if indeed the replacement for Antonin Scalia was somebody that's a whole lot less conservative and maybe a whole lot more progressive, and what that means, as well as the various videos that we make available, as the special mailings that we send to you and all the rest. And so there are some tremendous benefits, not the least of which, of course, is that Bible stick that we're going to give to any of you that join for $1 a day, $30 a month.
That's correct. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Okay, guys, in 10 seconds, what's a reason people ought to give before we go out in the break?
So you can make a difference in this crazy culture that we're living in.
So that other people who are not getting this information will be able to hear it all over the country.
There you go. 2 good reasons to give right there.
And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the convention, but we need you to call right now, 1-800-347-5151.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. You should step up because you can, and you haven't done so yet. Visit us online at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. On this final day of a very important week for us, be that one who takes us over the top. pointofview.net, or call 800-347-5151. pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour, it is weekend edition, but it's also the final half hour
That's
of
right.
Truth Team 360. Brad Fisk, we still have a mountain to climb here, don't we?
A little bit under $10,000 to go. We've been chipping away. We started last hour with $22,000. $12,000 of that has been picked up. Thank you for that. I don't ever want to not say thank you. But we look at the other side. $10,000 to go and less than a half hour to get it done. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
I always wanted to give because I thought that point of view really brings a lot of things in out here in the open that you don't hear anywhere else. And but what I like, when I was hearing on there, well, I could count on it being something that you could check into it and the proof would be there. I didn't have to wonder, well, where did they make that stuff up from? I really think that's great.
I've been listening to you right around 30 years now, before I got married, and now we had kids going to college. And we used to donate regularly. We're going to start doing it again. It's a worthwhile cause. I mean, sometimes you get fed here much more than you will in your churches, and look at how much we give to the churches. We should be supporting you.
But I feel it's so important that we know what's going on, and you folks do a great job of it. And I also had joined. It's the best thing to do. Like somebody said, they do $1 a day, and they don't feel that so much. At the end of the month, they've got $30 to send right off.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, what you do. And I just wanted to say that your program is giving us a voice, and I want to thank you for that.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
I love it. 800-347-5151. We're appealing to you. Don't wait till the last minute to call. We are talking about joining the Truth Team at $1 a day. That's $30 a month, $360 for the year. Now, that's just a suggested entry kind of level. Mm-hmm. A gift of any amount, single gift, monthly gift. And also, if you give a bit more than that $1 a day level, we have some other thank you gifts.
The 16-ounce tumbler and journal set. And again, we've held it up a number of times for people to see online, but of course it's also on our website, and that is available. You can have either one or the other. If you give at the $65 a month level, you'll receive both of those if you give at the $100.
And before we turn it back over to you, Kerby, I just am thinking that there's some people listening right now who have been listening for decades, for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 2 years, and you've never been a part of the financial family. Could I encourage you right now to pick up the phone, to encourage us, because we are talking about life-changing issues forever. I mean, our culture could shift in ways that would be not good. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
All of the lines that I see through our window are full, but that means other people are getting the other overflow.
We have a total of 10 lines.
And if by chance it is possible, at sometimes we have those peaks that you got on a waiting list or you didn't get into queue or it was busy, just call back, because that is something we would encourage you to do. But as we said before, there's no busy signal if you go online. So that's the case. While those calls are being processed, and we'll see how we do in just a minute in terms of the match, I want to come back to Penna, Dexter, and Kelly Shackleford. When we talk about the convention, a lot of people don't understand that they talk about an open convention. And let's put it in real simple terms. You have the first ballot and you go through, and at the end, does any candidate have 1237? If one of those candidates do, well, it's over. But if they don't, then they go to the second ballot or the second vote. Kelly, at that point, I think almost a third of those candidates that are bound now become unbound. True?
That's right. So it's just a matter of every state having its own process that they work through. Again, that's the whole concept of federalism, right? So what you have is some states, a third, allow their people after that first vote when they get to the second vote. Because they had the first vote, nobody got a majority. So guess what happens? People have to start combining, right? Mm-hmm. You have to start saying, okay, well, we can't go, maybe my guy was third or fourth, so he's not going to win. So I need to readjust and go with who I think is the best of the people that are really in the battle here. And a third of those are freed up. Now, again, let's say you're from Texas. Even on the second ballot, you are pledged.
You're still pledged.
That particular.
So then you'll go through that one, and then you get up to a little over 50, almost 60% then are no longer bound. But still, you still have some bound even until the third ballot.
That's right. And so you go through, and people are being freed up to vote who they think. But that first vote, most of the delegates obviously are bound by, because of the elections that occurred in their own states, by who their vote goes for.
So most of the delegates are bound for the winner of their state, if it was a winner-take-all state, or they're bound for that proportional part of their state that he won, that each candidate won. I remember, and I mentioned this Kim Strassel article in the Wall Street Journal today, and she talked about the state of Virginia.
Yes.
I used to live there, and I was a delegate for a candidate who was running for lieutenant governor. You all know him. His name is Richard Viguerie.
Oh, my gosh.
And he didn't, there were
that?
several good candidates actually running. And he didn't win on the first ballot. And so we had to then regroup. And we knew enough about all the candidates. We knew enough about politics that we were able to make an informed decision to jump to the second person. Well, that person didn't even make it. And so finally, my third choice was the one that ended up being the nominee for lieutenant governor there. And I think the Democrat won anyway. But that was the system as I experienced it. Well, in Virginia now, this is a good case to look at right now. They had their primary back in March. And it was 35% for Donald Trump and I think 17% for Ted Cruz. They're having their state convention tomorrow where they're picking their delegates. And it could be quite a different story there. As a matter of fact, she says that probably the overwhelming majority of the delegates there will actually be for Ted Cruz, because that's just where the really involved people in politics are. So, that's what we're dealing with. And that's why when the media says that there's an inevitable nominee already, there's not.
It's certainly the case. Brad, just before we get back to some of the things on the convention, what else do we have before our listeners here?
We have a lot of friends of the ministry. People are familiar with Gary Bauer. He was on earlier this week. Let's hear what Gary has to say about Point of View.
Good.
I'm always amazed how often people will say, Mr. Bauer, I don't really listen to the evening network news anymore. I rely on your end-of-day report and Point of View to get the information I need that I can trust in order to counter the things that are going on in every community in America that often we don't hear about from the so-called mainstream media. So, Kerby, I've often said I'm always proud to be in the same foxhole with you, but we're definitely in the same foxhole. I think without programs like yours and stations, the network like yours, and the work that we're doing and other groups out there, I think, unfortunately, we'd be a lot further down this slide that we're in the last couple of decades against reliable standards of right and wrong.
Gary Bauer on with us earlier in the week, and this is the first time now we have some open lines.
Five of them. Five open lines.
Let's take the opportunity, just before we take our next break, to call that pledge line. We're coming down to the end.
We are.
I can see the finish line, and I do not need any more procrastinators. If you've been waiting to the end to put us over, you are now there.
Yeah.
800-347-5151.
That's 800-347-5151. We have a $10,000 amount of money remaining in the match, and we have 15 minutes to get it done. That's it. We're down to the final 15 minutes. We can't get this time back, and that money is on the table. As you said earlier, it's sitting on the table figuratively, and if we walk away and leave it, it's gone. If we pick it up and take it out of the room, we get to keep it. So it matches every dollar you give. $1, $10, $100, $1,000 will be matched up to the $10,000. 800-347-5151. And remember, that $1 a day or more, which is $30 a month or more, and that Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing is a gift for you. May not be something you want, but hey, how about a gift for that graduate or for that newlywed or for that next birthday of your grandson or granddaughter? Come on, grandparents, we need to hear from you. 800-347-5151.
After the break, we want to ask Kelly Shackleford a little bit about platforms, because he and others have sat on the platform committee. And how is a platform put together, and what does this mean when you have such a division between, say, a Ted Cruz and a Donald Trump, and maybe even some others, some Marco Rubio delegates and the rest? So we'll get a chance to talk to him about that. So you don't want to miss that.
No.
But you want to actually take the time right now as we go to the break to make that phone call. We are so looking at the end of this week, which has been a very good week, Truth Team 360. But we need to hear right now, 800-347-5151. And as Brad said, we're still under $10,000 on the table,
Yes.
and we don't want to leave $10,000. I would not leave $10,000 anywhere,
No, I wouldn't
especially
either.
not on a table here.
800-347-5151. Another word from you guys before we go to break.
I love matching grants. Your money gets doubled, and this is a great opportunity, folks.
I think back to when I was in law school and I turned on the radio and heard Marlon Maddox and thought, wow, thinking about these issues from a Christian worldview, and I'm sure it has that influence on a lot of people's lives that it did on mine.
What a great story. We will encourage your phone calls, and they'll come back right after this. 1-800-347-5151. Please call.
Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee really did her homework in preparing for hearings before the committee she chairs, the House Select Investigative Panel on Infant Lives. This committee is looking into revelations that Planned Parenthood is likely profiting from the sale of the body parts of aborted babies, in violation of federal law. The committee is also inquiring into whether the companies procuring the parts from abortion centers, including many Planned Parenthood clinics, and selling them to research institutions are also violating the law. Billing information, consent forms, advertising, accounting and marketing materials, and several other exhibits were presented at the hearing titled The Pricing of Fetal Tissue. Charts listing the pricing of fetal parts are nausea-producing. A research institution paid a middleman procurement company $3,340 for a fetal brain. A baby's skull matched to upper and lower limbs went for $595. Upper and lower limbs with hands and feet went for $890. Videos obtained undercover and released last summer and fall by the Center for Medical Progress show Planned Parenthood officials, the organization's lead doctors, admitting they alter the abortion procedure, which makes it riskier to the mother to obtain parts as intact as possible. Now, Congress has this evidence showing the prices these large sections of baby bodies command. The videos even hinted at the sale of intact babies. The evidence did not show prices for those. One thing the hearing revealed is that more Planned Parenthood clinics and more middleman procurement businesses than just the ones covered in last summer's videos are now suspected to be involved in this grisly business. A law passed in 1993 makes it illegal to profit from the sale of fetal tissue. It is legal to provide and accept payment to cover reasonable costs associated with transporting and preserving fetal tissue. Under federal law, the transportation of fetal tissue is based upon a non-profit model. But these documents appear to suggest that abortion clinics bore none of these costs, and yet they receive fees from procurement companies. Now, Planned Parenthood says it will no longer accept these fees. Chairman Marsha Blackburn suspects, and I'm quoting her, "It is more than likely that payments to the abortion clinics and to the procurement businesses have exceeded reasonable cost." 3 former federal prosecutors testified before the committee that a criminal probe is warranted. In written testimony to the committee, Ben Sass, U.S. Senator from Nebraska, wrote, "Babies are not the sum of their body parts. Babies are not meant to be bought. Babies are not meant to be sold." Representative Diane Black, another stalwart pro-life congresswoman from Tennessee, a nurse during her pre-Congress career, asked, "Have we reached a point in our society where there effectively is an Amazon.com for human parts, including entire babies? There's no chance the current U.S. Justice Department will act on this information. But let the investigation continue." For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
I've called in before, and I just wanted to say again what a great show this is. And if all Christians would listen to Point of View, I mean, you can get an education just from listening to this show. It's awesome, and I really appreciate everything you guys do.
At my church, I'm the public affairs representative. I obtain information about political affairs that are going on. And I just wanted to say thank you for your programs. I listen to you every day, and you're really my inspiration to do what I do at my church. I feel capable, mostly from what I learned from your programs.
Just wanted to know how much I appreciate your program. I've been listening to it for several years, and thank you so much for the positions you take, most of all for the wisdom you exhibit, and just keep up the good work.
I just really appreciate your program, and I tell people about it all the time. But because of your program, I've been thinking about attending seminary for some years. And anyway, I started attending VES, Veritas, with Norm Geisler and those guys, and about a third of the way done with a Master of Arts in Theology. And I owe you great credit for that.
So I've been listening to y'all for years. I'm not a politico whatsoever. I believe in voting, yes. But if it weren't for y'all, I wouldn't know how to vote. I'm serious. I wouldn't know the first thing about voting, but I do now.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
Last segment of the week, and it is Truth Team 360. We only have a few minutes left. Brad, how are we doing on the match?
Well, good news. We're down to $5,500 to go, and the entire match will be cared for. Excuse me, I get so excited. So it's time not to stop, though, because we have 8 minutes to get $5,500 through the door. So we're inviting you to give us a call. If you get a busy signal, just go online or wait a moment in queue. We're turning the calls over pretty fast. I've been watching. So the number to call is 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. And you can also go to pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
And let's, if we can, for just a minute, talk with, again, Penna Dexter and Kelly Shackleford. Kelly, you have been on 3 different platform committees, but let's do a comparison. We're going to have a Republican platform and a Democratic platform, and every year we always put in the Outlook magazine a comparison of the 2 platforms, and they are literally as different as night and day, aren't they?
Very much so, yeah, obviously. And I think most people know that, right? One is rabidly pro-abortion, which on the Democrat side. The other is rabidly pro-life on the Republican side. One is big time for gay marriage and those type of things. That's the Democratic side. One is very much for marriage only being a man and a woman, the Republican side. I mean, there are a lot of issues, but I mean, those are some pretty big issues. I remember last time, if you'll remember, one of the huge fights was over whether God was going to be in the Democratic platform. And they had that huge fight on the floor where everybody was screaming no. And, you know, I mean, it was really kind of eerie to watch. But there definitely is a huge difference between the 2 platforms. I would encourage people, they can just online, they can say, hey, I want to just do a Google search and find the Republican platform and the Democratic platform and just start reading them. And you will see a very big difference on the issues.
We will post them on our Pray, Organize, and Vote. And Penna, that's something we've made available for many years now.
We have, and you know, it was interesting to hear that one listener who said, "Oh, she actually listens to Point of View to find out how to vote." Mm-hmm. And that is one way that every single citizen can make a difference in the culture is by voting and by casting an informed vote. You know, when you look at the last 2 election cycles, President Obama said he was going to be a transformative president. You look at the Democrat platform, you look at the Republican platform and see the differences. Now, these are patterns. Everything on the platform doesn't always end up enacted. But in this case, so much of what was in the Democrat platform and more that went very far to the left was enacted in the past 8 years. We've been talking about the bathroom bills and the, you know, allowing men who say that they're women in the women's restrooms and locker rooms. In Obama's education department, they interpreted the Title IX law to say that you have to allow the men who say they're women into the locker rooms in the schools where the girls are changing. This is what our administration says you have to do. This is the kind of interpretation of our laws, the kinds of regulations that will be put forward in another administration where another person from the far left is nominated and elected. So that's what's at stake here in this election. I mean, the election is kind of front and center here right now. There are lots of other issues. But to make a difference, I mean, one way to do it is to help Point of View. I am not a lawyer. I can't go and defend religious liberty cases like Kelly Shackleford can, but I can give to Point of View. I can be involved in informing people of the issues that are at stake. So that's what we're asking folks to do.
One question I wanted to ask you, because you're kind of an expert on this, is that earlier in the week we had Rebecca Hagelin. Mm-hmm. We also had Robert Knight, and both of them said the same thing. They think that Hillary Clinton will be more dangerous than even Barack Obama. And they said in the case of Rebecca Hagelin, it takes a village to raise a child. And in Robert Knight's case, and certainly this goes along with Kelly Shackleford, if she is able to appoint Supreme Court justices, she will have more ability to enact radical progressive ideas. You've read, of course, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, and that's a really dangerous document, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really the collective raising the kids. And, Obama didn't have to replace anybody with the opposite. Whereas now we're going to get conservative justices replaced. And so that's why who's president is very important.
Hey, I'm going to just jump in real fast. We still have some match remaining, okay? It's not done yet. So give us a call, please, because we are down to the final moments of the broadcast. Again, it's 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And I just looked. We have 6 open lines. So there's plenty of time just to get right in right now.
Well, again, if you can help us, we are down to the last couple of minutes, and we will have a more normal Friday weekend edition next week. But
this
Kelly
has been fun.
And Penna, it's just been great to have you on the show today.
Yeah, one of the things when Penna was talking, people might think, oh, well, yeah, this bathroom stuff is just crazy, but at least they'll leave us alone in the church. No, we're getting calls this week from churches who have been told by state officials in writing that this will apply to their bathrooms in their church.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
So
needless to say,
here on Point of View,
we're gearing up for lawsuits on these things. But I mean, yeah, it doesn't surprise anybody. They're not going to stop. Like, they're going to stay out of the church. I mean, they're going to force this on the church like everybody else if they get their way. And of course, the churches are going to say, we're not going to do this. So this is coming to you wherever you are. This is not something you will be avoiding.
Let me just mention, if you'd like to know a little bit more about Aaron and Melissa Klein, Eric Walsh, of course, this case having to do with the High Court of the Military, those are all available on our website. It's one more reason to support Point of View. You're hearing things you would not hear anywhere else. You have articles that you can read and pass on to
We've
others.
been hearing it all week, Kerby. We've been hearing examples of why Point of View needs to continue to exist and grow. Now, by the way, we are going to stay as far as taking phone calls after we go off air. So don't pull back. I mean, we're going to be here to take your calls. So give us a call, 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. I see at least 3 empty lines out there in the other room. So there's room for you to get in right now.
And let me just mention that even though we're going off the air, we do take those phone calls, and we will certainly take those phone calls, and we'll even take them a little bit later than that if we have to, but we'd certainly like to meet that match. We're getting close, but
very close, but it's not there.
You can put us over, indeed. And I want to say, Brad, thank you for a week. It's so great to have you in here. And
thanks, been a great
really, and don't you love his enthusiasm? Just an enthusiastic individual. We needed that.
I do.
Yes. Well, again, just a few seconds left. Let's again give you an opportunity to give, and we really do need to hear from you. We have a few $1,000s left on the match. We don't know exactly what that is. 800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151.
And thank you all who are standing with us, and thanks be to God for His glory and for His kingdom to go forward through Point of View.
If you can't get through or you would like to make a pledge later, you can also, of course, go to the website pointofview.net. Click on Truth Team. You'll find some of those articles we've been talking about today with Kelly Shackleford. I want to thank Andrew, Catherine, and Shamila for their help behind the scenes. Have a great weekend. We'll be back here on Monday.
Thank you, guys. It was great.
Awesome.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. You should step up because you can, and you haven't done so yet. Visit us online at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. On this final day of a very important week for us, be that one who takes us over the top. Pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151. ofview.net, and 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.